Hey, have to work on that transition. Oof. Oh, wow. So we are live. So this is something that's kind of been in the works for a while. Kind of off and on. We were like super pumped about it, and then like life would get in the way, and then we'd come back to it, life would get in the way, but finally we were like, it's going down.
Just blame it on coronavirus.
Yeah, I know. Oh, shh, that'll get us demonetized.
It's correct. Oh, darn. I mean, everybody should wear masks.
Yeah, obey CDC. But yeah, so as you all know, I'm Kurtis. I run a channel, Digibit Gaming, that you're watching now. And this is my good friend Ace. Ace?
Hello.
Awkward introductions. It's all good. But yeah, Ace has been a friend of the channel for a long time, since like I probably had 20 subscribers. Which feels so long ago, but like I really didn't get traction until like January. But yeah, so it's super awesome to have you here, Ace. This is something we're just throwing the line out in the water, and if it hooks, we keep on fishing. So Ace, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what do you do and all that good stuff?
Yeah, my name's Ace. I am working at starting up, a few different projects on YouTube and Twitch, stuff like that. Had some success here and there, but, just trying to work through this. Avid gamer. I love everything nerdy, whether it's anime, current gaming, not so much the classic gaming like Kurtis, but I do appreciate it. It's just that I lived through it, so I've been there, done that.
Shots fired. But yeah, that's awesome. And like I feel like that's a really good like contrast. I'm an old soul anyway, so I may be physically younger, but I'm probably older than Ace mentally. I'm very much like, get off my lawn. Right. But yeah, so I feel like that's a good contrast. Like, he's kind of been through the retro thing. I'm like discovering it. I know nothing about modern gaming. Ace is way more up to snuff on stuff like that. So yeah, so basically how this is going to start out, we just kind of catch up, talk about things we've been playing, things we've been working on. Both of us are content creators. Both of us, have lives outside of YouTube and Twitch and all that good stuff. So I feel like that's a way to kind of allow everybody in and see us like as a person instead of just a face on the screen. But yeah, so we are going to go ahead and get into the next little portion of this, which is some news. So, Ace, if you want to start out, you got first grabs here.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Ghost of Sashima Director's Cut. It's going to be coming out August 20th. Now, a lot of people don't know this, even family members for that matter, but Ghost of Tsushima has been one of my all-time favorite games. The combat style is amazing. The art, the Japanese culture that they have into it, just a really fascinating game. And they're coming out with the director's cut August 20th. Like I guess I said that, but it's going to have things like a new map. I think it's called Iki Island. It's going to have the multiplayer legends and some different things like that. So definitely something I'm going to be keeping my eye on. I don't know that I'm going to run out and buy it right away, but I am interested in it.
Yeah, and is this one of those things where they're still offering it on PS4, but you can like upgrade? I think I saw that somewhere. It was like, if you bought the director's cut on PS4, it's only X amount to upgrade instead of like $60 for a brand new game. Yep,
exactly.
That's
I'm not
cool.
sure 100% sure the details of that, but yeah, it's basically what they're going for is
gotcha.
If you already purchased it, you're not going to buy it again.
Have you been one of the lucky ones to snag a PS5 yet?
Yeah, I have a PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Whoo, flexing over here.
I know, right? It was a long couple weeks of just watching, just waiting for somebody to come through with it, and finally I found one on eBay that was fairly priced and managed to get it right after the Walmart, one of the Walmart restocks.
Oh man, yeah,
I haven't looked
insane.
at it since. I'm sure it's still crazy.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eye out for a PS5, but I'm just like, man, like I'm not paying scalper tax, like rule number one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's awesome. You were able to find one.
Yep. Yeah, and I really enjoy them. Honestly, the PS5, I think I like a little bit more, just because there's just a lot to it. The Xbox is pretty much what you're used to. I mean, not a whole lot that you're missing from the X. But that being said, I think that coming up in the near future, coming up holiday season and stuff, with Microsoft purchasing Bethesda and stuff like that, I think we're going to see a lot of Microsoft exclusives, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, yes. So many people will be so ticked if like Elder Scrolls 6 is Xbox exclusive.
Well, what's his name? Howard, he pretty much already said that that's the case. He came out and said at E3, I think it was at E3, he came out and said, look, Microsoft bought Bethesda, so we're going to be PC and Xbox exclusive. So it's something that's definitely going to happen. And I mean, honestly, I can't blame them. A lot of people are mad about it, but it's kind of funny because, IGN, for instance, if you go back and you look at their take on the PS4, I'm sorry, not the PS4, but the, what was that game called? The Last of Us on PS4. It was an exclusive, and they were all about exclusives. And PlayStation has a right to do this. But then when Xbox, when they announced that Bethesda was going to be Xbox exclusive, they got tore up. And PS5 in the past has always been the king of exclusive. I mean, maybe Nintendo's probably more so.
Yeah.
But PlayStation has always been kind of the king of exclusives of the two. And honestly, I'm kind of glad to see Xbox getting into the fray, because I think it's going to drive competition.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like PlayStation had like the Uncharted series, Last of Us, all that stuff. So I mean, who knows? Maybe Bethesda will be like their main bread bringer. So
I just hope that PlayStation comes up with something amazing to counter. They're going to have to, but they're going to. I hope they come up with something just amazing to counter that. Because now we have Starfield's going to be exclusive. We have Morrowind, or Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be exclusive. Any of the new Fallouts are going to be exclusive, like all that stuff.
Man, have they mentioned anything else about like PS5 VR? Like, are there any specs or release dates or anything you know of? Because I think that might be the thing that kind of brings
I haven't paid too much attention to the VR stuff. I have a sort of unpopular opinion that VR is just a fad. It's so expensive, and then you basically have to dedicate an entire room with wires running all over the place. And I mean, maybe they'll come up with some better solutions to that kind of stuff. But my one and only experience with VR was that it was really cool, but I ended up running into a wall and smashing my fingers off of a ceiling, and you completely lose where you're at. So it's kind of hard to do.
Like leaving skin on the walls and stuff.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you come in, there's just blood on the walls. Yeah, this is my gaming room. Don't worry about it.
It's like, I love Beat Saber, but yeah, it very much, I don't have VR. A friend of mine does, and like when we go over there, we'll play like Beat Saber and stuff, and that crazy like hill climbing game. And I kind of agree with you. Right now, it's still very gimmicky, very fatty. There's not a lot of like substance there to keep you retained. Like Beat Saber is basically just Guitar Hero in my book. It's like once you run out of songs, it's kind of like, eh.
Yeah. And I did play one cool game. I don't have any idea what it's called, but it was a really cool concept. And, there was like this robotic spider that jumped from my face, and I actually like dove to the ground and, duck and cover kind of thing. And it's cool that it gets that reaction out of you. It's just, After 20 minutes, 25 minutes, like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and play Skyrim on the VR for 40 hours.
No, not unless you like mod it to pieces and like Randy Savage dragons are chasing you. Oh man. Yeah, K Willery in the chat says VR is the motion control of the 80s, 90s video games. Cool idea, but limited usage.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of my thought. I could be wrong. A couple of years from now, they could come out with some new technology that tracks better and stuff, and you can blow it out of the water. But we'll see.
Yep. And speaking of PlayStation related stuff, kind of, sort of. So last week, I don't know if you're familiar with Retro Fighters. They're a controller manufacturer, and I think starting out, made a NES inspired controller, and it's more Xbox controller like feel. All the buttons, all the features you would need for a classic NES title, but a lot more comfortable form factor for modern people getting into retro gaming. That's kind of like their thing. I actually reviewed, it's just outside arm's reach, but I have their N64. Yeah, got these short little arms. But yeah, it's a N64 controller called the Brawler 64, and like the number one thing like people always tell me about the N64 was they hated the controller. Like, it's one of those things, you either love it and adore it or hate it and just loathe it. But it was a really good like middle ground. And this past week, they released a wireless PlayStation controller that's going to be compatible with PS1 and PS2. And looking at the picture, it is very much like the Xbox One controllers. Very, very much. Almost like a mix of that and the Switch Pro controller. But yeah, their beginning pledge, I think, was only something like 13,000, and they're already up to 117,000 on Kickstarter. Again, anytime you go to get anything from Kickstarter, like, make sure the brands are reputable, make sure they have a physical product displayed like on their images, and don't just throw your wallet at them if like you've never dealt with them before. But Retro Fighters, they're good stuff. They're calling it the Defender. And yeah, so wireless, 2.4 gigahertz. So it should be pretty low latency for the people who are like sensitive, maybe speed runners, things like that. Again, it's not going to be as perfect as like a wired solution, but also, it's going to come with turbo function, auto input function, comes with vibrate. And I don't know if they said anything about the battery life, but I would assume probably like...
I think it said 10 hours.
10 hours?
I saw something that said 10 hours. Could be wrong about that. I thought that's what it said.
Let's see. Da. Could be mistaken. Boop. I don't see it, but man, I love that green controller. Holy cow.
Yeah, it does look... I personally, I'm a fan of the blue, but...
Yeah.
So what do you think is... how big do you think it's going to be, something like this would be received? I know a lot of the older console gamers are kind of against the wireless thing and the newer controllers. Personally, I prefer a wired. It's quicker, but that's not that much of an issue because I'm so slow that it could never be... I'm never going to exceed the speed that the 2.4 can give you. But I hate running out of battery. I can't stand sitting there comfortable in my chair and the battery runs out. But,
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, the most distracting thing in the world is input drop. So, like, when you're playing, like, Super Mario World and you hit that jump button and Mario doesn't jump, that is the most infuriating experience.
You've got one job.
Yeah, you had
Good
one job. It was one frame perfect jump. Why couldn't you make it? But
Your name was Jumpman.
yeah. Yeah, and like I prefer wireless, but and especially like with the PS1. So here recently, a really, really popular mod called the X Station was released, and it's a optical drive emulator. So a lot of people are picking up these PS1s and getting X Stations put in it. Well, now you can just slide in your SD card and you have everything. Even updates through Wi-Fi, so like you don't have to touch anything. So I feel like this is probably marketed more towards those people where they probably have a console set up, and a very similar way like I do. The consoles are kind of off to the side, TV's in front of them. That way they can just kind of like be lazy and relax and play, and they don't have cords hanging everywhere. So definitely the casual retro gamer. Now, if they're like hardcore speedrunners, no. The 2.4 gigahertz is good, but it's not going to be fast enough. So
Now, help me understand this, because, like I said, I lived it. I lived the retro gaming. What is the advantage? And I'm not in any way I'm trying to belittle it. But with retro gaming, with technology today, and you can emulate anything, you can play it with your Xbox 360 controller, your Xbox One, your, whatever. What do you think that it is that draws people to go back and play these old games, find themselves an old CRT television, with the original console? What do you think drives that?
honestly, I think most of it is just nostalgia. A lot of people that are into retro gaming, they either grew up with it, or in my case, like, I mean, I grew up with PlayStation 1, but like Atari 2600, things like that. They might just be curious about it. And yeah, there are tons of great emulation machines, and great software emulators that if you just want to play the games, like, they'll do a phenomenal job. And it's a really cost-effective method to do it. I mean, you can get a Raspberry Pi, or if your work is throwing out an old desktop computer, you can just install emulators on that and make it your emulation box. And I know people that do that, and they're perfectly happy. But I think the appeal of stuff like this is for the individuals who aren't just nostalgic and want to play the games, but they love the hardware. They love the gear that comes with it. And honestly, being able to push this old hardware to the limits where just soldering on a simple board allows you to have lagless HDMI output and stuff like that. And they look better, if not just as good as like some of the most top tier emulators, and play better. I think that's another big thing, because that's one thing that got me out of software emulation was the input lag and the latency, and all that stuff just wasn't there yet. There's been new technologies that have come out since then, but it just, there's a whole different feeling between playing on a real system on a CRT with zero lag and playing on an emulator. I don't really know how to describe that. It's definitely a very, very niche thing. But
yeah, it's you mentioned the N64 controller, which I loved. And I remember when that thing came out, and I was just blown away at how awesome it was. And I loved it when I was playing, but nothing would persuade me to go back and play with it again.
Oh man,
but I appreciate it. I appreciate the concept and the people who go through all that, and the knowledge that they have to be able to go in and mod that stuff. So it's my favorite game of all time is actually Harvest Moon for the PlayStation, Friends of Mineral Town, I think it was. And I had to emulate that for the longest time. And then Stardew Valley came out and basically just put the same game out, almost verbatim.
Yeah.
And, so it's what it is.
Yeah, and like N64 is and people say like, why haven't they made a mini console? N64 looks like dookie on digital displays. Like, it looks horrible. It's got some of the best composite and S-video output compared to other consoles, but like the de-blur that's naturally like baked into the system and stuff, it just looks so bad. And I think they just haven't found a way to emulate it in a way to where it would be appeasing. Plus, when you go back and play GoldenEye 007 with your friend, you suck. It doesn't matter how good you were at that game when you were younger. That controller is hard to pick up and like let muscle memory take over. But
just pick Odd Job and Duck. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, I'll let you grab this next one here.
New World closed beta. I don't know. I'm sure most people have probably heard of New World. I think it's the first title by Amazon Games.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal game. I am somewhat of an MMO fan, but I like the concept of them, but I don't seem to ever like the follow through. I find myself, I'll get an MMO, I'll pay the subscription or whatever, and then I'll play it for 10, 20 levels and be like, I'm done with this. New World is just a whole different kind of MMO. I mean, it's still got. It slightly has, the little toolbar with the button. There's 3 of them. There's 3 spells you can push with that. Other than that, like when you're using melee, you're clicking for each attack. There's a light attack and a heavy attack, and you kind of have to combo those together a little bit. There's like guns that are really, like muskets. And I think they're really rewarding to get a kill with a musket and use the traps and stuff. I didn't mess with the magic at all, but I had a whole lot of fun. I'd say I probably put in 40 to 45 hours during the beta, and I'm really looking forward to the release on the 31st because I just haven't seen another game that's like this, and it was really fun.
Yeah, a couple other streamers I watched, they were they were having like naked dance competitions and stuff, and like stalking the streamer's house and like waiting outside. And by naked, I mean they were like in loincloths.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like video game
I play
naked.
Conan Exiles, so nothing is too naked for me.
That's about it. That's about as nude as it could be.
Exactly. And what's funny with Conan Exiles, and I don't want to get too frank, but when you're climbing a hill as a male character and the camera likes to get... That's all I need to say.
Yeah. It's hot outside in the desert.
Right.
But, yeah, so New World, like, I've only seen a little bit of it. I haven't played any of the pre-order or beta or anything. Mainly what worried me was my laptop has a RTX 3000 series, and when the game launched, they were having that issue where people were playing and their graphics cards were just like nuking themselves.
Wow. I hadn't heard that.
Like there was a, I don't know if Steve at Gamers Nexus did a thing about it or not, but yeah, so like people were having these like $1,200 like RTX 3090s and stuff, and it always seemed to be the EVGA for the Win edition RTX 3090s, which apparently is the most sold because they've been the most readily available. But yeah, like they were playing and then their card would just die. And every single case, the only common factor is they were playing that game.
Wow.
Apparently, Amazon has released some sort of patch in order to help prevent that. They said that in all of their testing, they haven't noticed that. But of course, with so many people being like, "Yo, what's going on? My stuff's dead." Like, they raise concern. So I don't know. Maybe it's fixed. my laptop has a 3070, so I was like, do I want to accidentally possibly nuke my card yet? So I was giving it a little bit of time until some of this stuff kind of resolves. Yeah, Jay's 2 cents did a video on it. And I think he also like took a whole slew of graphics cards and was like purposefully trying to nuke them. It's like, well, I guess if you have the inventory of a small like computer store.
Right.
But yeah, so it definitely looks interesting. Like, I love the aesthetic of it. Basically, it kind of reminded me of like WoW and Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, I'm so sick of MMOs that come out and they're just WoW clones. Literally everything that comes out is a WoW clone. And if it's not a WoW clone, then it gets turned into that. And I really think that this is going to give WoW a run for its money. You know, it's unique enough and different enough that I think it's going to bring in players that are sick of MMOs, but like myself, you know, I've played every MMO on the market. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of the same old thing, you know, and it appeals to me. So I think more people are going to have that opinion than just myself.
Yeah, that'd be super awesome.
And I was trying to look up. My laptop is an Area 51. Ooh. And I was trying to look up what it had for a graphics card, but I couldn't.
You could probably just go into Device Manager.
Well, I'm not on my laptop now. I was looking up my order from Dell.
Gotcha. Yeah. Good old Area 51, man.
I'll tell you though, it was running hot. So
I bet it was.
Maybe it was close to melting. Who knows?
Bet it was. All right, moving on here. You know what? I'm going to go to the Olympics. So if some of you watch the Olympics, I have watched 0 Olympics. But I did see this article and like had to check it out because apparently in the like beginning ceremony, they have like a bunch of like singing and dancing, and we're doing like different tributes to Japanese culture where it happened in Tokyo. They used a ton of video game music while they played. Stuff like the victory fanfare from Final Fantasy to like da 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 da. And they had Chrono Trigger's Frog's theme on there, stuff from Monster Hunter, Kingdom Hearts, Sonic the Hedgehog. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, who would have thought of all places that the Olympics would do something like that? It seems very counterintuitive. Most people that play video games stay inside and don't go to the Olympics. But I think it's just really cool to see that like gaming's becoming such a like interwoven part of our culture and like who we are worldwide, not just in the States. Mm-hmm. Because I guarantee you there were so many people sitting in the stands that were like, wait, I've heard this before.
Well, I have to disagree with you on one point, and that is that there was not so many people sitting in the stands because they were doing the coronavirus thing, and I guess there was a lot of riots and stuff, which struck me as odd because they were protesting having the Olympics during the pandemic, and my assumption is that they're upset that this could potentially spread the virus, but there was thousands of people in the streets, packed shoulder to shoulder. There was more people protesting, I think, than I think they said there was 589 people in the arena, and that was it.
Oh, wow.
Other than press.
Oh, I didn't realize they did it like that.
Yeah, and it was. I actually went and watched the opening. It was really awkward. As far as you didn't have the the turnout, you didn't have the crowd noise in the background and stuff like that, the cheering for the opening drones and stuff like that. And it was, that was kind of weird, but it just struck me that these guys, it seemed like there was literally more protesters packed in there shoulder to shoulder than there were contestants. And, not to make a thing about it, but it just kind of blew my mind a little bit. But back to the gaming and the Olympics. I think it's really cool that they did this. And I'm wondering, because I don't know that they did it in this Olympics, but they're talking about making esports part of the Olympics, which I'm partially on board for. Yeah. And I say partially because the only thing that they want to make part of the Olympics are sports games. Oh. So that's not really esports. I think they're kind of missing the mark there. You have like League of Legends, CSGO, stuff like that is where esports are at. So if you're going to add it to the Olympics, I would add the popular stuff and, not FIFA soccer, which only has a big turnout for people who want to bet on a video game.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, man, that's awful.
Yeah. I don't know what the thought is behind that. If I wanted to watch somebody play soccer on my television, I would watch them play soccer.
Yeah. It's like
nobody's going to go out there and play each other with an axe, so I have to watch that on League of Legends.
Yeah, it's like the really awkward iRacing stuff NASCAR did last year.
Absolutely. Which some people are all about.
Yeah, like honestly, I've never experienced a racing sim myself, like with the steering wheel and all that stuff. I've played iRacing with a controller, don't recommend, but I think it would be awesome, but I'm sure if you're a professional race car driver, especially in NASCAR, it's kind of like oh man, I can't feel the wind sort of thing.
Exactly.
So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, at least from what I've been told, when you're driving a NASCAR, it's basically, like trying to ride a hurricane. Like it's just all over the place, and you're basically just muscling this car around. Not so much with the Indy cars, or not Indy cars, but what are they? Darn it, what are those things called? the fast ones over in Europe. Those ones, Formula One. Not so much with Formula One; those are more technologically advanced and stuff. But NASCAR is just kind of a mess. And when you take that all out of it, I can't imagine it's the same at all. And
yeah, like I know there's like force feedback and like the pedals and stuff have actual like hydraulics in them, but yeah, there's no way it's the exact same. K. Willery in chat says, do you have the fingers of an Olympic esports athlete? I do not. Not even close. I got the reflexes of a dead cat.
Yeah, same here. I have sausage fingers, and I'm more apt to hit 4 or 5 keys at a time than actually hit the right one. So
there you go. Those like spell key fingers. It's like I don't care which one, just all of them.
Yep.
All right. So our next article here, I actually haven't had a chance to go through and read this at all, but yeah, why don't you take this away, Ace? This looks interesting. So
basically, there was a Chinese government, I don't remember the name of it. It was a paper that came out, and they were really hard on gaming and criticizing it, calling it spiritual opium, drugs of the mind, stuff like that. And basically calling for stricter reform on video games, which, I mean, you expect that stuff from China, and, so it's not that big of a deal. But, I mean, they're calling for stuff like, banning anybody under the age of 12 from playing video games, limiting it to 2 hours a day, 1 hour during the weekdays and 2 hours on the weekends, like crazy stuff like that. And, while this may be something that is kind of, Chinese craziness, I just wonder at what point are we going to start seeing people in the U.S. And I mean, we've already heard people talking about, gaming is the worst thing. I know, what's his name? Joe Rogan. I know he's not a big fan of gamers and stuff like that. When are we going to start seeing people complaining about this and trying to pass laws? I know in California, you already can't buy, a pre-built gaming computer because it's too energy hungry. So Just something to think about.
Yeah, and I definitely, like, I feel like it'll be an influx. Like, history seems to always kind of repeat itself. And I know people say, like, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, But I honestly see a resurgence of the whole, like, ESRB rating system. Just coming back into play, and, like, they might revisit it and stuff because, like, last time I played Call of Duty, which was probably, like, Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3, something like that, most of the people in the room sounded like they were, like, 8, 9 years old, and they were, like, cussing like sailors, and, like, I've never been told to kill myself so much in my life.
Right.
But
in that high squeaky voice.
Yeah, and then you, like, take them out from across the map, and you had that, like, but, yeah, so I don't know. Like, I feel like much with anything, you can just lay all the laws you want, but unless, like, parents are actually enforcing stuff, it's not going to do any good.
And that's where it's at, right? You know, it's, as a parent myself, I'm not going to let my kids come in and play some of the games, Witcher or, Call of Duty, stuff like that. Those are games that I would play, but I'm not going to let my 6-year-old daughter come in and play that. That wouldn't be appropriate. And that's my responsibility. I don't need the government to tell me how much time my daughter can spend on her Kindle and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But, hopefully it never comes to, something like that.
Yeah, and I feel like, too, a lot of times your default is always the tool you use the most. So in schools, they get their own laptops, they get their own tablets, so they're on tablets all day long. They come home, it's just their default. If they're chilling in their room and, like, not doing something, you're probably going to turn the screen on. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like, I don't know, there's so much that figures into it. Like, I don't have the right answer. That's for darn sure. But, and I'm not a parent, so I can't speak from that experience. But it's just like, these rules, man. I don't see them working.
I think that's the key, is you don't have the right answer. I don't think anybody has the right answer. Yeah. Everybody needs to decide what that answer is for themselves and, have the ability to do so.
Yeah, and oh man, I just had, like, the biggest brain fart ever. Wow. It was like, man, I had this point in my head, and I was like, oh, dang, I need to talk about that.
Yeah, this is going to be good. Boom. Gone.
I heard the bubble pop. It's all gone. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, and China, too, like, I see a lot of, like, the really tech-savvy kids, like, trying to work their way around this with, like, VPNs and stuff, which I'm pretty sure having a VPN is illegal in China. I'm pretty sure when I was looking into, like, my IT certs and stuff, I saw something like that. But never stop the moonshiners.
It's kind of, it is illegal, but I don't know how well it's enforced. When I worked in IT, we set up email systems, and a lot of companies didn't want to, or they wanted to use, for instance, Google Apps. And the issue with Google Apps in China is that, at least at the time, and this was years ago, they were having a falling out with China, and China would not let you access Google. So there was companies that were in China that wanted to use the app suite. They basically had to set up the VPN, make themselves look like they're from somewhere else, and that really wasn't a big deal. It was very commonplace. So I don't know how much they enforce the no VPN rules and stuff, but they're there, I guess, if they want to.
Yeah. Oh, good old China. All right, in our last article, we'll end it with some good old retro modern gaming here. So a little while back, a gentleman named Vitor, I believe. Let me consult the doc. Vitor Villela came out with a idea to take retro games and make them 16:9. You might think, my emulator can do that. Well, this is a pixel perfect 16 by 9. So in retro games, people think that pixels are little squares. They're not little squares. They're slightly longer than they are wider. And when you don't scale them properly, especially in like a 2D side scroller like Super Mario, you'll get a lot of like shimmering and weird artifacts as you run along. So his idea was to take these and basically take like the pieces of the frame and build it frame by frame. So essentially you're playing the game, but it's got more of the next oncoming frame like already in picture. So it naturally fills out the screen. Okay. I'm a huge hardware nerd, and I love when people can kind of reinvent the wheel like this. Mm-hmm. Again, if you emulate, you probably don't care about this. If you play on original hardware, you probably don't care about this. But this is just one of those things that was like really, really neat. And he's also taken, I believe it's the same person. I say he, it could be she. I'm sorry. I mean, no offense, but they have taken the SA1 chip that comes in like Star Fox and different games like that add extra processing, and they've been able to kind of hardware or software emulate that into games to where you don't have slowdown. So like if you have a ton of explosions in like a Contra game or something, then the game won't slow down. It'll keep its normal pace. Just different things like that. This person's always doing neat little projects and like always giving back to the community. Again, all these things are free. All of their stuff is on GitHub. And of course, any dollar, dime, penny you feel like contributing to these people to constantly give back to the community, like that information's up there as well. And I'll try to go back. I'll probably forget. My bad. But I'll try to go in and link all of the links we've used for these stories like in the video description. So that way, if you want to like reference something, you can just go back to it and look at it for yourself. So yeah. So now we get to find my mouse cursor, which is over here, and go back to here. So every podcast that we're going to do, we're going to have like kind of a main topic to kind of discuss and debate stuff like that on. And I just came up with something like very generic off the fly. I got to tell myself a little bit. But so the main topic is like, why do we play games? Kind of the first question that comes up. And we talked a little bit kind of sort of about this when it came to retro gaming. But just gaming in general, like what is it about video games that hooks us? What hooks you, Ace?
Oh, I think that's a big question. A lot. I really like the aspect of obviously you've just had enough of the day and you want to retreat into something maybe like Stardew Valley, for instance. It just kind of you're not using your mind, you're just kind of blanked out playing this game where you're planting crops and feeding cattle. There's other games where I may feel a little bit more energetic or something. I don't know how to put it, but maybe I want to play a game like Call of Duty or League of Legends, something like that, and really put some effort into it. No matter what mood I'm in, there's something for me in gaming, and I really try to reach out across all genres. There's a couple of genres I don't get into. Obviously, dating sims are not my thing, and the whole waifu thing, like that's not my deal. But there's, for the most part, there's not a genre of game that I don't play, other than maybe sports games. If I want to play football, I go out in my yard and play football.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't exactly go out in your yard and slay a dragon.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. I feel like the reason I play goes very, very closely with that vein of thought. And all growing up, like, again, I don't want to, like, push any of my, like, childhood trauma on people. But, like, I didn't have the roughest childhood, but I didn't have, like, the greatest in the world. My parents did the best they could with what they had. And to me, video games were always that escape, like a way to, like you said, disconnect from reality and just enjoy something. Like, some people watch TV, some people read books, some people, like, jog. I play video games. And I feel like a general psychology that goes with that is it's like video games shouldn't be your, like, the method to fix issues, but for those moments you need to, like, stop and recharge. I feel like it's a very healthy thing. And the reason, like, main reason, like, if I got nothing else out of video games, what hooks me the most is story. Like, I love RPGs. I love Chrono Trigger. I love Legend of Dragoon. I love Final Fantasy Tactics. Like, all those great JRPGs and RPGs. It was like, man, I just got so enveloped in the stories. And, like, to me, it was so much better than books because, like, I was in control of the character. Like, if I wanted to take 30 minutes and, like, go through the environment and try to find all the hidden stuff, I could. In a book, I couldn't do that. Maybe right. D&D. But but yeah, so that's the biggest thing that hooks me. It's just, like, narrative and story. It's like, I don't know, like, I feel like everybody enjoys a good story. Like those grandpa moments where you're sitting there and they're, like, telling you about the war, and it's like you've heard that story 1,000 times, but every single time you're just, like, sitting there enveloped in it. But
and a lot of good history too, in gaming, and you kind of have to discern a little bit, like, you know, what's real history and what's made up, because you know, Ghost of Tsushima, for instance, you know, I'm sure there was an invasion of the island of Sashima at some point. Now, do I think anybody had these magical powers? No, probably not. But, you know, so you got to kind of depict the good from the bad. But, you know, games like Civilization, you know, Battlefield 1945, stuff like that, like, those kind of games really kind of introduced me to the history. And, you know, I love reading about World War II and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it was kind of gaming that got me into that in the first place.
Yeah. And I'm a huge history buff as well. And my grandfather was a World War II vet. So, like, anytime I played Medal of Honor or, like, something like that, and they would talk about, you know, D-Day or Battle of the Bulge, which my grandfather actually fought in, like, I felt such a personal connection to it. Like, oh man, I've heard stories about this. Like, I've heard how like terrible these events were and stuff like that. And same thing, like, I feel like there's valuable life skills that you can actually pull from games. Yeah. Like conflict resolution, stuff like that. Like, are you gonna rage out and break your controller, or are you just gonna grit your teeth and like try it again, sort of thing? Same thing. Like, I was at such a high reading level when I was in like 2nd and 3rd grade, because all I did was play my Game Boy Color, and like that thing didn't have audio. You had to sit there and read the text and like hope you had enough lamplight to read it. Right. And like, I mean, just different things like that. I feel like there's so many just valuable things you can pull from games, like and
I think with that, I like you were saying, there's a lot of good things. I also have to look at it and say, there's a lot of bad stuff that could come out of gaming too. And we talked earlier about people kind of, the Chinese thing where they're talking about how, kids can sit there for 8 hours a day playing video games. Well, first of all, that's, in my opinion, that's on the parents. Like, your kids can't play 8 hours of video games if you stop them at 2. But anyways, there's good things and there's also bad things that can come out of gaming. And I think that's just a matter of, it's a tool.
Yeah.
And just like a shovel, I can dig a hole and plant a flower, or I can beat somebody over the head with it, It's a tool, and so it's what you do with it that matters. And, I'm not even against, honestly, there's times where my kids have probably played 8 hours of Kindle at a time, and that it's not a big deal. There was nothing going on. It's raining outside. We're cleaning the house or whatever,
yeah,
more power to them. But it's all about using that tool the way that you can to improve yourself, to not throw the controller through the television. In itself is an act of self-control, and learning self-control by not throwing your controller through the television, which I can tell you I don't think I've ever thrown a control, but I played Dark Souls and I beat it on the hardest setting, and I can tell you I've absolutely wanted to throw my controller through the television.
Yeah, I've never made it all the way through Castlevania 3. Because at some point I get so mad I want to smash things, and I'm like, all right, I gotta walk away.
Speaking of smashing things,
yeah, flipping tables and throwing microphones. Rip headphone users there. But yeah, and I totally agree. Anything good in excess can become bad. And there's definitely, especially when you factor in stuff like online play, I mean, that just adds a whole nother can of worms to the equation. Who are your kids playing with? What kind of language are they learning from said kids? And
I fear for I don't really, but I fear for the next generation for, the stuff that you hear when you're playing online. And it's like, where are your parents at, kid? You just called me names that I would be ashamed to utter.
Yeah.
And you're 7 years old, where are your parents at right now?
Yeah. But yeah, for sure. And and again, I guess depending if you're on the optimistic side or the pessimistic side, you can kind of balance and be like, oh well, there's so much worse than there is good, and It's you got to search for what you want. Ultimately, that's what it boils down to, is any sort of happiness you're trying to find from a video game, you're probably not going to find it from a video game. You're not
going to find it from anything. That's what life is. If you're searching for happiness, it's so hard, because this is my opinion, or my philosophy is you just have to be happy, because if you're trying to find it in something else, you're just not going to find it. It's just a matter of looking at it and being I'm enjoying this game. I'm happy right now. And, if you're looking for happiness, that means you don't currently have it, and it's going to be hard to find, because you have to kind of create happiness.
Yeah. And you can find enjoyment in things, but ultimately you're not going to find happiness in it. All growing up, I played video games constantly. I enjoyed them, and it was a disconnect, but I didn't find happiness, authentic happiness. Which, man, I feel like that could be a whole nother podcast there.
Right. That's probably a podcast we don't even want to get into.
I know, that's some deep philosophical. Yeah.
But that being said, it's my personal opinion that gaming brings far more good than it does bad. I think more people choose to use it in a good way. Even the people that are on there cussing somebody out, maybe they just had a really bad day and that's what they needed that day. The most creative outlet for it, maybe not, but it's better than them going out and yelling at their kids, or yelling at somebody at the market or whatever. I'll take that bullet, because honestly, if you're yelling at me on a game, it's probably because I did something cool.
360 no scope, bro.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, so, and another kind of sub question of all of this was have video games had a deep, meaningful impact on who we are as a people, or as a person, who we are as people? Wow, I cannot read tonight.
And you wrote it.
I know, right? Just Was I drunk? But yeah, so any like meaningful impact as who we are. I feel like I feel like probably one of the biggest things like I've grabbed from video games is patience, and like realizing that I can be mad at a problem, but that doesn't make the problem go away. If anything, it'll just make it worse because then I'm frustrated and trying to solve the problem. Yeah. And like, I'm definitely a very, very patient individual, probably almost to a fault. A lot of times it does end up biting me in the butt, but I feel like I can actually attribute that to playing video games. Along with like, I don't know, like I'm a really good typer.
I can't type. I mean, worked in IT for 10 years, played video games my whole life. I cannot type. I know where the keys are. I can put a keyboard back together. Can't type.
Yeah, I can like set up DHCP servers and I can spell orange. But no, like I'm not a great typist. I think I might be at like 65 words a minute or something like that.
I'm as fast as you can go with 2 fingers.
Hey man, I know people that will code circles around me and they just use 2 fingers. It's just tick, 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 tick.
Yep.
Like same thing. I don't know if you ever watched his videos, Barnacle Nerdgasm. Like he's a ex-Microsoft like programmer. And like he has the weirdest typing configuration. I think it's like a claw on this hand and like regular fingers on this one. And he just like and he can type something like 70 or 80 words a minute or something crazy. Like,
that's insane.
But yeah, and I don't know. I feel like I didn't answer that question, but I did.
Well, I mean, so yeah, definitely. I feel the same way. I've definitely learned a lot of patience from video games. I would say the biggest thing that I would learn, biggest things that I've learned, I probably couldn't just sit here and list off because, again, going back to games like Civilization and stuff like that, where, I learned what Hagia Sophia is and, all that kind of stuff, that there's so much of my life that I've learned from video games or ideas that I've gotten from video games. I have 21 trees in an orchard outside of my house right now because I played Ghost of Tsushima last year, decided that I wanted to get some cherries, was eating the cherries and got the pit, and it was this whole road that led to me planting 21 trees from seeds and planting them in my backyard. And then, so I mean, it's silly things like that comes from that stems from gaming that I couldn't even begin to sit here and tell you what all in my life has been affected by gaming, because it would just be all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of times people refer to the gaming lifestyle, because it's an actual lifestyle. Like, almost like if you read books, most people that are avid book readers that I know are the most analytical people. And like, their attention to detail is so incredible and just like mind-blowing. And it's because they're so razor focused on like what they've read and like attention to detail that they're able to like grab and process rapidly. It's like, probably same thing with them. They couldn't tell you like every single instance of like, oh man, this book changed my life. This book changed my life, like, or made an impact on it. Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
One other thing, I think it probably, looking at it from just an overall life, I think gaming has definitely probably the biggest impact, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, is persistence. Playing games like Dark Souls and just sticking it out. And the old games were, oh my God, I can't even play them anymore. Like Contra, where you play for 3 hours and then lose and then start all over again. There's the persistence that I've learned from that is probably the biggest positive attribute that I've gotten from gaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just a little insider thing, I always used a Konami code. I don't dare play Contra without it. But yeah, and like on the flip side, as much like impact as, you know, gaming has had on our lives and like what we do and how we do things, I feel like there's another flip side to it, and that's kind of the thing like a lot of media razor focuses on, and that's video game addiction. Personally, I believe addiction is the individual. They either have a addictive personality or something like that. I have a extremely addictive personality. That's why I limit the things I enjoy.
Right.
And one instance, like, I have totally been addicted to a video game before. Like when Minecraft released, and it was like, even when it was just beta, like I played that game 24/7. And at one point I was a auto technician, and I had my laptop set up on my like toolbox, and like I'd run over, loosen the drain plug, drain the oil out of it, run over, like click a few blocks, run back over, work on the car a little bit. And like my wife would come home, and like I had been home for like 5 hours, and like the dishes weren't done, laundry wasn't put up. She just worked until like 10:30, 11 o'clock as a waitress, and like, man, I was in hot water.
I bet.
And like, yeah, I mean, I've totally been addicted to video games and stuff before, and like that's why I don't play Minecraft anymore. That's why I haven't picked up WoW. I haven't picked up Final Fantasy 14. A lot of those MMOs, like I just know. I know.
New World is coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That'll probably
I want to end your marriage.
Yeah. And like probably honestly, like I think it helps. It would probably be better now because I'm so busy outside of work, like with YouTube. Oh, golly, I'm about to like uppercut this microphone. I'm not used to having a condenser in front of me. I normally have a shotgun mic, but with YouTube and stuff going on, I'm constantly working on projects and stuff like that, so it keeps me busy. That's my new addiction.
Right.
But
yeah, I think as far as you know, like being addicted to games, that's absolutely a thing. I think that I don't know that I think that I'm trying to think of how I should put it. I don't know that being addicted to something is always the worst thing, especially if you have an addictive personality, because you know, I too, very addictive personality. So what am I going to do with that? Am I going to play video games? You know, am I going to, you know, going to the drastic far end? Am I going to go out and find drugs is something to do, or drinking, or, you know, I smoked for 10 years, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, I almost feel like for me, I have to have something that fills that, you know, having that addictive personality, you know, and games definitely do that. Now, there are some games, like you said, that are probably bad games for me to play. Ark, for instance. I have over 8,000 hours into Ark. And it was, you know, months and months and years of time just spent 4 hours of sleep at night. You know, because in that game, it's in my opinion, Ark is the funnest game that I've ever played. I love it. I love getting on there with a good group of guys, and, you know, you're just trying to survive together. The environment's so hostile. It's so easy for people to come and wipe you out. And unfortunately, they have no concept of, you know, preventing offline raiding. So you always have to have somebody online. And, you know, that was me. I was that guy, you know. It was from midnight till 8 a.m. I'm the only one on, you know. I have their phone number so I can call them and be like, hey, guys, you know, we're getting hit. And,
so wild.
you know, I put so much time into that game. And I don't want to say that I regret it, because I did have a lot of good times. But at the same time, I wish I hadn't spent 8,000 hours on it.
It's like, man, if I spent like 8,000 hours like learning something, I would have a PhD in it.
You're right. I should have a degree in art. I mean,
Yeah, there you go. You could write the world's most greatest tutorial. But yeah,
and I mean, it was bad enough where, we got bored with playing the regular game because when you start off, you're fighting for survival, and then you get to that point where, you're the alpha of the server, and everybody just kind of leaves you alone. You tell everybody what to do, and then you kind of get bored, and it got so bad that we were like, all right, let's go live under the map for a while and do the whole cheating thing, and so we did that for a while and got my account banned, and I got a new one and started all over again, and it was.
That's awesome.
I've done. If there's something you can do in Ark, I've done it.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was with Minecraft. Like it was like right at the cusp of like when they stopped you from being able to like offline tear people's crap apart. Like I would just demolish people's castles and stuff like that, and like friends' castles, and oh man, it was bad. But like. Honestly, I'm trying to think if I've ever had something close to what Minecraft was to me. And I think the only other thing was maybe Warframe. And I can't even say that because Warframe was one of those games, I hated it so much, I loved it. Like, man, the grind was so real in that game.
Yeah,
like,
it certainly is.
You had to put the hours in or else you didn't have anything.
Yeah.
But I mean,
amazing game.
Yeah, fantastic.
I love Warframe. There's nothing wrong with that game.
No, it's by far the best free to play game I've ever played,
and done right too.
Yeah.
Free to play where you're not gonna pay to get a leg up on anybody. You're not gonna buy that special gun that costs $20 to buy and you can beat anybody. Like that's just not the way it is. And the PvP community is just utterly non-existent.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, but whether the PvP just sucked or whether it just didn't attract that kind of person. But the community is so strong. The other people that you're playing with are generally so cool, and it's just such a good game.
Yeah, I very rarely ran into people who like weren't super willing to help, or like you're like, dude, I'm trying to find this like relic, or I'm trying to find like something. They'd be like, oh yeah, you just go over here to Mars, or look for this certain type of enemy or something like that. And yeah, definitely the community was great, and it's probably one of the best online communities. Same thing with like the developer, like
yeah,
they just care so much about the players to the point like I was watching a documentary, and at one point you could pay to re-roll like your where are they, Kubros, the dog things?
Yeah.
And you could pay to re-roll like if you didn't get the one you wanted. And like they watched a guy just like spend $1,000, and he just kept re-rolling. And they're like, all right, yeah, we gotta put a stop to this. And like they disabled that so you wouldn't blow through all your money. And like I know EA would have been like crying if someone did that to their game, but
right, they probably sent that guy a message like, hey, you
you're
come over here and check this game out.
Don't you dare disable that.
Right. No, it's and I mean at the same time I also don't blame companies for making the most of like gotcha games. People come down hard on Raid Shadow Legends, stuff like that. Like people want to spend their money on it, that's their problem. I've been there. I've done the gotcha game thing. I'm doing it right now with the Disney version with my daughter actually. And we're not spending a ton of money on it or any yet actually.
Yeah, and I feel like
it's just fun.
I feel like, and honestly, that could probably be like a really good thing to teach kids about budgeting. It's like you get $5 a week or $10 a month, whatever, for your gotcha games, and like once it's gone, sort of thing. Like I feel like that could be a great way. But
the first lesson of you just paid $5 for something and you have nothing because you got a bad drop.
Welcome to NFT. That's a whole nother argument. Whew.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
well, I'm actually I think where NFT is going to kind of diverge.
Yeah.
I think where NFT is going, and I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of excited about it, is gaming where you have, skins, and they only release 100 of a skin. And, that's I'm looking forward to that because I'm a sucker for skins. When I played League of Legends, I think they shut it down now, but they used to have a website where you could put in your user ID and it would tell you how much money you've spent. And the last time I checked on League of Legends, and I'm ashamed to say it, it was like $1,500. And that was years ago when I was working in IT and had, lots of extra money.
Yeah.
But, I am a sucker for the skins and stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like with Warframe, like anytime I got that 75% off coupon, buddy. Yeah. Which granted, I only got it like twice, so I think I'm only like $80 in, but I have a lot of skins. A lot of skins I don't use.
The trick to that is if you stop playing for 2 weeks and then you come back, there's a high probability of getting the end. So there's a little tip for you. That's where they actually have an algorithm that like watches that, and when people come back after a long absence, they get those 50s and 75s a lot.
If my wife's watching, you didn't hear that.
For real.
Oh man, but yeah, I do love some skins, and like I don't feel like I may crack a joke every now and then at NFTs, but I don't feel like they're a bad thing.
It's like gaming as a whole, it can be a bad thing if you choose to use it that way.
Yeah.
If you lose control, then you need to stop. If you're paying $1,500 for League of Legends, you need to stop playing League of Legends or, curtail your spending because that's not okay.
Yeah. And like with NFTs, like you just got to be careful, like use your gut. I mean, if someone's trying to sell you like a picture for $1,500 and you go and like find that picture on Google, it's like you don't own that picture. Right. You're buying a replica for $1,500. I mean, it's just like retro gaming, any sort of collecting. There's always going to be people out there trying to hustle and make $1 and like make retro or reproductions or something like that. And it's like you just kind of got to know what to look for. If you don't know what to look for, learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh man, that might be a good discussion. NFTs. I'll have to keep that in mind. But anyway, so to kind of wrap things up here. So in the future, right now it doesn't really matter because we're so small. Like, we can kind of answer questions on the fly. But as the podcast grows and stuff like that, if we get to the point where, like, realistically, we would just be spending all day answering questions, what we're going to do is move to a $5 super chat donation. And if you do that, we'll happily answer any question that's, like, reasonable. Like, don't ask us to cure cancer.
You can ask us, and we'll give you an answer. It's not going to be the right answer, though.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, everything will be opinion-based. So if we say, hey, you ought to check this, and you fry your graphics card or email server or something, right. That's on you. But, yeah, so normally we would do that for a little while. Again, we've answered all the questions we've gotten, so we're not gonna worry about it tonight. But yeah, so this was kind of testing waters here. Hope you all enjoyed the stream. We're gonna do this not next week, but the following week. We're just kind of like dipping our toes in, seeing if this is sustainable. Again, Ace has a family, I've got stuff going on, so we definitely don't want to like burn each other out, and definitely don't want Ace to get tired of hearing my voice. So
I could never get tired of that. So I'm just going to play this on loop just over and over in my office.
I'm going to sleep to it.
Oh, never mind. I thought I looked over at the stream and I thought my camera froze, but I guess I was just sitting there with dumb look on my face.
Oh, man. Yeah, and the other day when we were testing stuff out, Ace made a good point that if you, like, superimposed both our faces over top of each other, we'd have a full set of facial hair.
Yes, indeed. It's a fact. You heard it here first.
We'll get a T-shirt made where it's like...
Our powers combined.
Yeah, we are Captain Beard.
I did see a funny meme, and it was and a little backstory on this, at least for me personally, and obviously for the person who made this meme. When I first got into like Netflix, I was excited because I could watch all this video and I didn't have to pay cable fees, right? I could just watch it. Well, I saw a meme the other day that put it into perspective. They're like, Hulu is $8.99 and Netflix $14.99. All these things, and it was the not Power Rangers, but the Planeteers, and then it says all your powers combined, I am just as expensive as cable.
That's the darn truth, man. Like, I was going through the family budget, and I was like, dude, we're spending over $100 a month on streaming services.
Yeah.
But oh man, fun stuff. Well, all right, folks. Well, I think that's probably where we're gonna call it a night. It's been fun. Definitely looking forward to 2 weeks from now doing it again. I'll put up stuff on Twitter and everything so y'all don't forget. I probably will forget. My wife will have to remind me. A lot of times when I go to stream, she's like, hey, it's Tuesday. You're streaming, right? I'm like, oh, I guess I am.
Yeah, I totally remember that.
She knows my schedule better than I do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my wife is my calendar. I don't have a calendar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing there. I've been looking for a good internet, like, app-based calendar, and they all suck.
Yep.
But, all right, folks. Well, we will see y'all in the next one. Hope you have a good night.